You can have it all on the Cinema 9 podcast. Michael Govier, Travis Roy, Eric Branstrom on a Thursday night, a proper time slot with all three of the original hosts. You know, it's not always something that happens, but here it is in real time. Or if you're watching this on repeat later on, which, guys, anytime you want to watch any of our episodes, they're all on YouTube, and you can look at our faces, see our expressions, reactions to whatever we're saying to one another, and, of course, in podcast form. Today, we will focus on The End of the Tour, a 2015 movie that I have selected for this week's Does It Hold Up segment, which we'll do in a little bit. But first, let's say hello to everybody. Hi, Travis. Good evening.
Hi, Michael. A good evening to you, sir.
Good evening to you.
That's all I got. I mean, I don't know. No, okay. I don't have anything to report about my students stalking me or anything this week. So.
Oh, we may or may not have had a comment from a student. Was that real?
Yeah, the reason I have nothing to report is because at this point it's commonplace. Like it's like spread like wildfire.
You're a big star now.
Only amongst people that have never seen any of the movies, but should not also be watching because it'd be inappropriate to hear me say the things I say. So
yeah, well, I mean, you're pretty. You're not a controversial guy, so you'll probably be all right. But you know, Eric Branstrom, you are a controversial guy. In fact, the controversy is really starting to ramp up because last week we forgot to talk about the passing of Tom Sizemore, who is from the Detroit area.
That's absolutely right. I believe he is from Southfield. He went to Wayne State University, a drama school. This hit hard, man. I was really hoping he could pull out of his slump and return to the screen, but it didn't happen. Yeah. And he left us with so many performances in a very, very wide range. You look at something like Heart and Souls, where he just plays this sweet everyman, and then these villainous killers, these tough guys, just a great range. Not tapped enough, in my opinion. Rest in power.
Yeah, but very much in some forever classics. Heat, obviously, Saving Private Ryan and True Romance. I think that those and Natural Born Killers, I give it up for that too. I'd say all those films are like not going anywhere anytime soon in terms of being classics.
Yeah, I did not know Tom Sizemore went to high school in Warren here, which is a suburb of Detroit area.
That's where I work.
At the same school? Or no, you work in Warren?
I work in Warren. I don't work at the school that Sizemore went to.
I thought maybe you passed a plaque every day in the hallways of Tom Sizemore in memoriam. It's already up. They put them up real quick these days because you get canceled if you don't put up a plaque in tribute of somebody as soon as they die. It's very important. Got to do it. But no, so, what can I say? I love Tom Sizemore. Everything he's in, smallest parts, the biggest parts, and yes, addiction is a killer, and it took his life, and he could never get over it. I don't know what his trauma was. I don't know what was eating at him, but it really gnawed a big hole in him so bad that we lost him. But,
was his stroke and subsequent aneurysm brought about through drug use?
I'm certain of it. I don't care if it wasn't reported or not. We just know the truth.
Oh, so. Mike. Well, I'll say Mike.
Allegedly.
Mike claims to know the truth.
Damn right I do. Come on, man. Anytime someone dies early, if it's not cancer or a heart attack, it's drugs. I'm telling you. 60s, or a car wreck. Of course, car wrecks. So.
All right.
He shouldn't have been gone. He should be here with us now. Actually, I wanted to ask you, would you want to be Tom Sizemore and live that life if you knew that the party would be cut short and that, you'd have to live a difficult life, but you had a real story career?
I'll tell you why. Because I watched a season of Celebrity Rehab, and his life seemed like an absolute fucking train wreck of misery, remorse, and pain.
And all the allegations. No, thank you.
Living the high life with Hollywood's Madam Heidi Fleiss for many years has to take a toll on your heart.
Sure it does. They had some good times, though. I mean, weren't all bad, right?
Hey, dude lived big and went out a little early, but that's what happens sometimes when you live big. Rest in power and peace, you star.
He's such a good man. So understood in a way as an actor, but incredibly misunderstood as a human being. And I feel bad for Tom Sizemore, but in the end, you got to be responsible for your own actions. So, hey, great actor, controversial human being. You brought us a few laughs, a few tears, and a lot of entertainment. Tom Sizemore, rest in power. Well, that was really my movie tidbit today. Did you guys want to throw something else out? Because I was locked in on Sizemore.
Yeah, there was this thing called the Academy Awards.
Yeah. So you guys love the Academy Awards. You both sat down and watched it. You guys were even texting each other in our text thread while it was going on live. I didn't see a single second of it, so I'll leave it to you guys. I didn't catch it this year.
Well, it was a bit of a return to form, I think, as far as the show itself goes, and that there wasn't as much wackadoo like stuff that was being skipped, other than the in memoriam that fucking sucked because they left off Tom Sizemore, they left off Paul Sorvino.
And Hayes.
They left off like some huge fucking legends, which is unconscionable. But other than that, I thought that the show, as far as the, like as a show goes, they did pretty well. I thought Jimmy Kimmel was a good host. I thought he had made me laugh in a few places. There were some very awkward moments as well. For me, I wasn't surprised at all. There wasn't. I don't think there was. I think the only time I was maybe surprised was when, and pleasantly so, when Sarah Polley won Best Adapted Screenplay for Women Talking, which I think that she definitely deserved.
Wow.
But other than that, it was Everything Everywhere All at Once swept. Avatar got the special effects,
The technical awards were going to go to Top Gun for sound, and then Avatar for visual effects. There's no surprises.
Yeah,
no Tom Cruise either.
Nothing surprising. The Daniels got Best Director, which was a little bit of a surprise, but all of the acting awards went to who I expected. So there wasn't a ton of surprises. I was happy that Pinocchio, that Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio won.
Yeah, Travis. Yeah. I love Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, but I fucking forgot how amazing Pinocchio was.
Yeah, you did. Last episode when you said that Puss in Boots was your.
I loved it. I just forgot about Pinocchio.
It was a good year for animation, I think, but the Sea Beast was kind of underwhelming, but it looked great. So Navalny won Best Documentary, like I figured it would, and All Quiet on the Western Front won Best International Film. Not a ton of surprises.
I did want to. I did chuckle a bit now that we're in our tidbits bit. That I did chuckle at the fact that Dove moisturizing soap is pissed off at Brendan Fraser and the Academy for awarding The Whale. Their tweet is setting off some alarms in the communities.
What is it?
They retweeted somebody who's pissed about fat suits getting awards.
Oh yeah,
fat shaming, all that, and Dove soaps. The great moisturizer, the great creamy moisturizer, excellent soap. But
I'm an Irish Spring man.
But did they have to tweet out to their users, stop giving fat suits awards? Let's change beauty hashtag. Are you fucking kidding me?
I respect them. They for many years they've had a very body conscious and body positive ad camp. Yeah, they've had a really body positive ad campaign featuring people of all shapes and sizes and stuff. They've really embraced that, and I'm for it. I mean, I'm not offended by The Whale, but I understand
this stance is just what is this stance? You're self scope.
Everyone's offended all the time. What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
We don't have to shine too much light on it, especially if we think it's dumb, right? But
can't avoid it. Can't put our heads in the sand.
Or you just close your Twitter account like I did, which is glorious.
Hell no.
That's ridiculous. I mean, Twitter's the same as it ever was. Nothing's changed. Trust me. It's just okay, someone's an asshole today. Someone said something thoughtful. Nothing's changed.
Which is why I'm happy that I've left it. I should have left it before.
I don't know. To give it some context, the tweet says, "Stop giving fat suits awards. We want better representation in Hollywood." Okay, fair point. But when you stop and think about it, so they want 700-pound people to not focus on their health, their well-being, this, that, and to try to, be in Oscar-nominated films by Darren Aronofsky. Come on.
No, I mean, Aronofsky's talked about how he couldn't find a plus-sized person who could have those kinds of acting chops. I hear you. How about, one of the things that has kind of bothered me is everyone freaking out about Angela Bassett's response to not winning. I saw it. She looked incredibly sad and she didn't clap. But do we have to have a fucking barrage of articles about how she was screwed over or how she's shady for not clapping? It's God, just let her be disappointed.
They got to write about something. It was a very vanilla Oscars telecast. It's just fine. So they got to find something. Like,
You're
are they
right.
making a face? They're making a face. Let's say she's pissed.
Yeah, you're right. I've seen a lot more like articles about people's clothes than usual, which definitely shows that like.
Did you see that fucking woman wearing like the Stay
feather?
Puft Marshmallow Man on her head? And
No,
like the woman behind her kept trying to peek around it to see the fucking show.
Yes. The most selfish fuck ever. I'm sorry. I don't know who this person is. She could be amazing, but like,
what an asshole.
If you go, yeah, that's a total dick move to go to a big event like that and wear like, I mean, I'm gonna wear a top hat with a peacock tail attached to it. Fuck everybody behind me, basically. Like bizarre behavior. But,
I tell you what,
look at us. We're finding things to be outraged about ourselves here.
Ah!
We're just kind of a blasé night, but not bad.
You're not going to get an Academy Award if you're in a Marvel movie. Just get over it, all right? And it wasn't worth it, frankly. I think they got it right. And I love Angela Bassett. And she probably should have won for a few previous performances in her career, which she got dismissed from. But in this situation, I really think that she was solid in the movie Black Panther Wakanda Forever. But, and this is... I'm sure you'll disagree with this, but it also seems like, hey, I did a really good job in this movie. We lost our lead who died of cancer, and it's really tragic. Maybe I should win. I think there was a hint of that in this, and I don't think that's cool. I'm not saying she pushed that agenda, but it may have been a part of it overall, and it just doesn't make me feel good about myself. I think Jamie Lee Curtis winning Best Supporting Actress is well-deserved, and I feel bad that Bassett didn't win, but hey, life goes on.
I didn't get a whiff of that, but by my count, this is the third time someone's been nominated for an Oscar in an acting role for like a superhero thing, and it's the first time it was a Marvel movie. So yeah, I kind of am inclined to agree with you. Like, it's awesome that she got the recognition. Should she get better, like more work and better roles and all that? Yeah, she's a fucking incredible actress and a national treasure. But you know. I wasn't disappointed to see Jamie Lee Curtis win, and that speech was great. She gave an awesome emotional speech.
Two people won Oscars for playing the Joker. So since one is DC Comics and one is Marvel, is there a big discrepancy here? I mean, I could have made an easy case for Josh Brolin as Best Supporting Actor as Thanos in Infinity War. I think the more that the MCU tries to adapt, evolve, we're going to be seeing more performance-based characters in there. Yeah. And if they're worthy of an Oscar, I will, you got my ears pricked up.
Yeah, those are both pre-2000. The Dark Knight was 2008. It was right before the MCU really kicked off. So in the MCU era, there's a lot of bitter people about it. They don't like what they've done to movies, quote unquote, I think, within the Academy. I'm not saying that's me. This is just a reality of people who look at those movies that way.
Well, anything that's out, as we've established, people have opinions about things.
Damn right. All right, well, there it is, a little Oscar talk. Let's move into quarantine viewing picks. Travis Roy, you have control of the board at this time.
Let's see. Well, I checked out Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which I agreed it looked great. I was glad it didn't win, but I did enjoy it.
Everybody loves it.
Yeah, it was good. Revisited Moon from 2009. What a fucking great movie. I've seen it so many times, but man, it's just
on my list.
It's so good. So good.
Great movie.
I checked out Bardo, the false chronicle of such and such and the other thing.
How was it?
It's so funny that Inarritu released a movie and everyone kind of went, I'm not gonna watch it. Like what? Yeah. Like why did I did that? I was so late to watch it.
Back to back Oscars? Whatever.
I don't know what the fuck is wrong with me.
I had no idea.
Yeah, it's on Netflix even. Like it's been readily available. And I've known that, but I've also known that it was really long and that it's really long and it's supposed to be like confusing. I learned the word from the movie. I think it's oniric, which is like relating to dreams, because that comes in a scene in the middle of the movie where they're talking about the movie itself, because that's the kind of movie that you're dealing with here. Eric, when we talked about Everything Everywhere All at Once, you said that you were not a huge fan, unlike me and Mike, because it was like a barrage of the senses. And I didn't agree with you, but that's how I felt about Bardo. So it made me kind of understand how you felt about Everything Everywhere All at Once a bit more. I respect the hell out of Bardo. It was incredibly beautifully shot. Oh, and by the way, Robert Deakins should have won for Empire of Light. What the fuck? Anyways.
Roger Deakins, yeah.
Yeah, Roger Deakins, sorry. What did I say? Richard Deakins? Sorry.
Richard Golden.
DOC? Business School? Sexy Specs? Yeah.
So I don't know where I was going with that. What was I saying? I'm not paying attention to me either. Oh yeah,
Bardo distractions.
So Bardo looked great. Some really interesting commentary about Mexico and Mexico's relationship with the United States and stuff. There was a lot of historical stuff of great interest, but it's a lot. It's a barrage. It's a lot. I checked out Argentina 1985, which was nominated for an international Oscar, which I would have been happy had this won. I found it incredibly moving. It's a court drama, very much like a procedural, but about like the first time in world history that a civilian court successfully prosecuted junta, like dictators. So that was awesome. That was really good. And lastly, I got to give it up to the thing I loved most, which was the first season of The Last of Us. We haven't really talked about this on the show. It's amazing to me that someone could elevate the zombie genre at this point. And, but they focused on the drama. It's a drama more than anything, with stellar actors, and it's taken very seriously by really competent filmmakers. And I loved it, man. I loved the whole season. I mean, it's gotten all kinds of praise, and rightly so. It's really incredible.
That's awesome. Yeah. I can't pull the trigger. Just like another zombie apocalypse. I can't do it. But if you're saying it is some well-trod territory. Don't get me wrong. I mean, like you're post-apocalyptic cities grown over with shit, and there's different kinds of zombies and stuff. But like one of the complaints that a lot of people had about the movie that were like hardcore fans of the game, which most people loved the adaptation, but were complaints that there weren't enough zombies. Or they don't call them zombies, they call them clickers and shit, but whatever. I had no problem with that at all. There's many episodes where like when a zombie shows up, like one zombie shows up in like one scene, and the rest of the show is like the real threat is like other humans, and like the way that, and like you're watching like these two people like learn to trust one another. It's really a beautiful story, but also like dark. I don't know. I thought it was great.
Zombie.
Is that drugs? You're talking about people dying young. Is that guaranteed drugs?
Hell yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, she drowned in the fucking bathtub because she drank herself to death. What a fool. She passed out.
70? Is it because of drugs?
Yeah. Well, it's in the top 4 for sure. Everybody who ever died of drugs. It's obvious. Last of Us, I don't care. I mean, it's not my thing either, but man, I'm probably missing something good, and I'll probably watch it in 5 years and be like, dude, I can't believe I waited this long to watch it. Eric,
let us know if you make that noise.
Eric, what do you want to recommend?
But I started watching Daisy Jones and the Six, the Riley Keough series.
Hey, I watched all 6 episodes so far. So did I.
I'm interested in your thoughts, because I mean, I see Riley Keough. I hit play immediately. I mean, dude, I'd watch her cook spaghetti. But I gotta say, I watched this first episode, and lo and behold, dude, multiple episodes are directed by our boy here, James Ponsalt.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
That's funny.
I was like, why do I know that name?
This is very fortuitous. I'm excited. Not about the show, which I thought was like what's that fucking movie that I don't like
Almost
and you guys
Famous?
love? Almost Famous Light. Yeah, Almost Famous Light. Crack a can of Famous Light and watch Daisy Jones and the Six. We've got like these supposed interviews that are supposed to be 25 years later. They look like the day of these proceedings in the 70s. Like, it's just hitting some very derivative, familiar notes. And I couldn't sink my teeth in it. I watched the whole thing because I did like the acting, but it's missing something. Even with Timothy Oliphant on board, it's just missing something, Michael. Jump in.
You're right. Travis hasn't seen this yet, so no spoilers. But what I'm saying, I was very interested because, we can go back to rock and roll days, which has its problems too, and it's being made in an era now where they're more cognizant of that. So I was curious how the show would take shape. But you're right, Eric. There's something that's not there. There's something that's it's like you're
not
getting
fresh.
me to it's like I'm climaxing, I'm getting close, but I just can't finish. It's like we can't get there.
Sure.
We just can't do it. Yeah. So I don't know what it is. I don't
love the series.
I don't love Riley Keough like you do. I didn't even know she was Elvis's granddaughter until I learned about it. But in the other people in the show, there's like a few faces like, oh, that guy. I know that guy. And that one woman who plays the wife of the lead male singer, she is gorgeous. God, I am now absolutely a fan of her.
I love that one woman.
Yeah.
Don't take drugs, please. We need you.
Yeah, stick around for a while. But there's also, it's a made-up story based on a novel, right? This novel was written a few years ago, but it's clearly taking... I don't think this is a spoiler to say this. Well, maybe it is, but it seems like it's an obvious pull from a real-life band that existed that is blatant to me. What did you get the same feel?
I got some Fleetwood Mac vibes.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought too. Yeah. But maybe that's just because it's a big band.
Well, the songs sounded exactly like Stevie Nicks songs. And like you have the fucking... You got to sit through yet again the scenes where they find the song and discover it, and like it lasts like 15. Enough with this already. I don't know, man.
Watching all 6 episodes so far, I will give it credit because it does what That Thing You Do does to you. How they shove the song in your face, and That Thing You Do so much, like it becomes an earworm, and you're annoyed even. And they do that with repetition because that's what happens. These people have to live in these songs and practice them and repeat them, and you as the viewer may even get annoyed from a few songs. I think it's not great. It's disappointing, but I am going to finish the season. There's 4 more episodes because I've watched the first 6, and they're doing like a release 2 every 2 a week, or they're doing a weird release schedule where they're not releasing all of it at once, but they're giving you a couple episodes per week. I think they dropped the first 3 all at once, which is different. And that woman's name, who I was like, whoa, that woman is a beautiful lady and a fine actress in her own right, is Camila Morone. Camila Morone, good to meet you.
Good to meet you. We don't think your show is good. And also, excuse me, but I'm a huge Oneaters fan, and careful with that thing you do, man. You cannot get sick of those songs. You can get sick of these songs.
I love the movie. The song gets annoying, though.
You know what? I did watch... Well, let me back up. I did turn on Tar.
Hey!
And I lasted about 20 minutes. I couldn't do it.
What?
Couldn't do it.
Wow.
Well, let's back up because I did watch the 10 minutes of opening acknowledgments that the pretentious director Todd Field put on the film.
I think I was like making dinner while I had that part going, so it didn't bother me so much.
I knew what I was in for as soon as I saw the 10-minute acknowledgments, and I was like, "This fucking pretentious prick."
Well, don't worry, they got a whole interview to start the movie after that, so it's gonna get you.
Yep.
In the movie.
I was so ready to learn. I was so ready to learn more about the complexities of conducting an orchestra. Didn't. Like these sorts of movies, like even if I don't give a fuck about like the topic, you should be able to find some way to make it interesting to me. They didn't. They just interviewed her for a half hour, then got into a story that I just could not get into. I was not engaged. Maybe I'll revisit it another day, but I don't know.
I mean, I'll admit that it bored me in a few places, and that I was glad that it didn't get showered with Academy Awards. At the same time, I think it was one of the more noteworthy movies of the year, personally, and I think it's gonna age well, and people are gonna return to it a lot. Personally,
yes, absolutely, man. I love Tar. Yes, it is boring in certain parts, and I may have fast forwarded a couple times. I admit that, but still, that beginning was so baffling. I'm like, is this real life? Is this a documentary? What is Todd Field doing to me with that interview with the real life guy? Who's that guy from NPR? It's him. Mm-hmm. I'm like, this is weird. I'm like, we're like in a meta situation where this is hyper realistic.
Steven Inskeep, was it? Who
Peter Segel.
Oh yeah. Inskeep shows up in End of the Tour. It's like as soon as you start talking, there he is.
That's right. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, man. I think I will return. You got to be in the right mindset. I was like trying to catch up on everything, so I was like, really, you better deliver because I'm watching all these, and I fucking paid $6.
What? It's streaming.
Oh, I didn't see that.
It's on Peacock.
Fucking Peacock, dude.
Everything's on Peacock.
Shit, I gotta set my alarm to cancel Showtime. Dude, Banshees. I texted you guys, and I wanted it to win all the awards. So it was just so for me that it's not even funny. Like I knew 2 minutes in that this was going to be my favorite movie of the year. I loved it so much. Amazing. It reminded me a lot of you ever see Bartleby with Crispin Glover and David Paymer? If you have, you would never forget it.
I'm aware of it, but no, I've never seen it.
It just this very like oblique, absurdist piece of fiction, and this was like just nailing me like on all cylinders. Just I loved the situation. It was shot. God, these shots were so fucking awesome, and how they did everything. Dude. It was so beautiful. I loved it from start to finish. Colin Farrell should have won Best Actor. I loved it so fucking much.
I would have been happy for McDonough. What's his name? Martin McDonough to win Best Director too. I mean, like, you take a beautiful setting like that, and it's easy to make it look amazing, but like, it's what he does. Just his camera placements and movements and stuff. He just I think it's the best work that he's done. And he also did not look happy when he didn't win. And I don't blame him.
Yeah, he looked pissed. It kind of paired really well with the end of the tour, because I'm watching it. And I can't take credit for this because I was watching it with my wife, and my wife said, man, she loved it so much. And she says, you don't really see a lot of movies about like a friendship that dissolves. Like, in real life, you have friends that like just decide to stop calling you and stop hanging out with you. And you're left wondering, why did I do something? And it doesn't make sense. Is this like a life moving on thing? Like, are they in a different path in their life? And there's no explanation there. And that fucking can fester in you, especially does with me, because that's a big, huge issue I have in myself. And you don't see that portrayed in drama a lot. To make it like you throw this fun absurdism there, blah blah blah. To really annotate the strong emotions that can really fucking do to you. It can really fuck you up. I just thought it was fucking brilliant. Loved it.
Yeah, I wanted to see Colin Farrell win. I really thought he would, actually. I know Brendan Fraser won the SAG and he had a lot of momentum, but I thought Farrell might sneak in there at the last moment. And it was another example of a guy who's supposed to be a sex symbol to some, gets older, has really got his chops like in prime condition right now. And I think he's going to win one here in the next 10 years. He's going to pick the right part. He works with the people that he should be working with pretty regularly. And he's not the kind of, like, remember Total Recall, the remake was almost 10 years ago. That really happened. And that seems to me like a completely different Colin Farrell than we have now.
Yeah. I think he's paid his dues making movies like that to like for politics and for money or whatever, to please people. He's clearly gotten to the point in his career where he can kind of be a lot more picky and choosy about the what he takes, and he's shown with stuff like Killing of a Sacred Deer and After Yang. Like, Lobster, this guy,
man. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Hollywood chose these roles for him, because when he came out onto the scene with Tigerland, I was like, this guy's fucking amazing, so raw. I think Hollywood decided that who they wanted him to be, and they threw these roles at him. I like Phone Booth.
Yeah, so like, when you're starting to pop, I think that, not that I've ever been in that situation in Hollywood, but it seems like some people, like, I have not, but it seems like, they you want to kind of like take the opportunities that you can, and it's not easy for a young actor to like turn down some big role, or like a young director. Like, I was listening to a podcast about Quentin Tarantino recently, and they were talking about how after Reservoir Dogs, they were trying to get him to do like Wild Wild West, and a bunch of fucking trash like that, and he just never do it. And early on, like, that took a lot of bravery. So yeah,
incredible film.
Wild Wild West, Wild Wild West,
big spider.
There you go, man. More Murder, She Wrote, season 7 right now. Got to kill it all.
Beautiful. Got to have that go-to safe play that keeps you cozy at night.
Very cozy.
By the way, speaking of the spider and John Peters and Superman Lives and how that didn't work out.
Absolutely.
Your buddy James Gunn's officially directing the Superman Legacy animated thingy, right, Travis?
The animated one? Is that what you said?
No, the film, animated? Superman Legacy.
Right? Oh, I somehow missed that announcement.
It's not animated.
Yeah. No.
When was that announced? I missed it.
I heard it the other day. Yeah.
Oh,
Michael,
so 2 days ago, James Gunn tweeted about it.
We were both worried, Travis. We were worried that he wasn't the right fit. And then I read the log line that they released, and it gave me a little bit of hope. It says Superman Legacy tells the story of Superman's journey to reconcile his Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing as Clark Kent of Smallville, Kansas. He's the embodiment of truth, justice, the American way, guided by human kindness in a world that sees kindness as old-fashioned.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I also know that one of the things that Gunn is and Peter, what's his name, Safran, are really interested in is taking emphasizing that the most physically powerful person in the world who could kill anyone and everyone is also like someone who is completely unwilling to kill. Yeah. And so I think that is really interesting. And I also think that Gunn if he doesn't lean into some of the more puerile humor that he can sometimes do, which I'm usually okay with. I see this image here that you're putting up, Mike.
Well, that's from All-Star Superman, and that's where they're saying they're taking a lot of it from. And All-Star Superman is like a Gunverse type of character.
Oh, okay.
Which is kind of a strange contradiction.
Well, and also what I was going to say about like Guardians and that kind of stuff, if you take out a lot of the kind of juvenile aspects of that, which I like, don't get me wrong, but if you take that stuff out, he's really good at wholesome and heartwarming and like just tugging on the heartstrings and making you care about characters in a deep, deep way. So he could be just the right person to do this. Maybe. We'll see.
And let's not forget, like, you can't dictate what a filmmaker is going to do. Look at fucking Todd Phillips. We all thought we Joker, Todd Phillips. Are you fucking kidding me?
Right.
Completely different than anything we've ever seen by him.
That's a very good point.
Get ready. Lady Gaga, get ready. Joker
Lady
2.
Gaga.
Can't wait.
Mike, what have you been watching?
Chance of someone else. Well, Travis, by the way, so that is just an animated shot, but it's a live action film. We're clear on this, just so I understand this.
Clear.
Okay. All right. Good. I trust you guys more than anybody when it comes to movies. For me, it's real simple. I watched the movie we're supposed to watch this week, which was the end of the tour, which we'll talk about in just a moment. And I watched a thing about Harry Chapin, who's a guy who really is a fascinating human being when you start to learn about him. And he died tragically. Wasn't drugs though. It was a car wreck. It was a car wreck. Yeah, car wreck's on the list. Yeah, he had died in a car wreck at a young age in 1981. He was only like 40 or barely 40. And, you know, Cats of the Cradle is what most of you will know him for, but he really focused on this hunger project to end world hunger. And like, he was busting his ass, and he truly was like, yes, he talked a lot and he might've been annoying, but he really seemed like an incredibly selfless human being. And I strongly recommend you check it out. He had this motto, which is, if you're down in the dumps, you don't know what to do, just do something. That's the response you should have. Just do something. And so it's called like Harry Chapin, Just Do Something, I believe, on Amazon. Check it out if you want. It's an hour and a half, and it's really interesting and goes deep with a lot of interesting appearances from people like Billy Joel that we enjoy. That's cool. And then I watched another one because it just became this music thing by Andy Summers, the guitarist of The Police. And boy, so it's like his view of things only. It's just Andy Summers talking about after they did that reunion tour in 2007, The Police, they went worldwide.
Yeah.
And I wish I would have seen that, by the way. I regret that now. And he talks about how they came to be in his life and how that kind of collides with the real time of them doing that tour in 07 and then looking at the past as they both kind of intersect at that point. And he is just such an underrated guitarist. Andy Summers, he kind of reminded me of Morgan in a way. He's kind of like a short dude, and he's a really good guitar player. I got hints of our friend Morgan when I thought of that just because of those two pieces of information. But I really love The Police, and it was great to get someone else's perspective that's not Sting's perspective of The Police, and Andy Summers did a great job with that. Check that out as well. It's called Andy Summers, and probably some title of a Police song that So Lonely, I think maybe it was. No, I Can't Stand Losing You. Hell, it's one of those songs. I don't know which one it was, but it's good.
All right.
Excuse me, Mike, but I listened to Is It Safe podcast, which is your other very, very fantastic show that delves in society and culture. And you mentioned that you recently watched a movie that I've declared for the past year as being the worst movie I've ever seen in my entire life, The Saint, and you loved it.
Yeah. Oh, this was my last point. I finally watched the Val documentary, which you had raved about, I think, about a year ago, Eric, right?
So good. So good.
That's great.
So, yeah, right, Travis? It's a fantastic... He has a treasure trove of video.
Yeah.
Isn't that mind-blowing?
It's mind-blowing. Like he like a video historian of Hollywood. Who knew that Val... I mean, the man literally opened a fucking warehouse to keep his videotapes in that. This is like an archivist's dream.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was incredible. So I love Val, and then I threw on The Saint afterwards, Eric. I love The Saint. I think it's a fun movie. I give him, as I said on Is It Safe, a lot of credit for turning down another Batman to do that movie. He did it because that's what he wanted to do, and I can't imagine anybody else who had already played Batman turning down another sequel if they only had done one Batman. That's a lot of courage, and I respect that.
Sounds like I'm going to have to bring The Saint onto the show and have you guys duke it out.
Guest host.
Definitely on my list. That's no doubter. But yeah, I love The Sand. I thought it's a fun movie. It's an interesting movie. It's not everything you want it to be, but if you were there in the 90s and you had it on VHS and you hung out with Steve Guile every night playing video games and doing terrible Tradiac impressions, you liked it. It was fun. So there you go. A lot of good movies. I also watched the Gordon Lightfoot doc again because I wanted to absorb it a second time.
Oh my God. Oh,
so great.
You still haven't watched the Bee Gees one though, and I'm going to be on your ass until you watch that doc.
That's supposed to be really good. I need to watch that.
There was a lesser one. There was a lesser one on Amazon. That's not the HBO Max one, right?
Brian Grazer.
Yeah. What else did he do? He did something else that was really big. I can't.
Brian Grazer?
Well, no, not Brian. I mean, like the director of the Bee Gees documentary.
I think that was Brian Grazer.
Oh, was it? Maybe I'm okay. Never mind.
Brian Grazer. Ready Player One? No, just kidding. Was that the How Can You Mend a Broken Heart one? Is that what it's called?
Yes, that's the one you want to watch.
Okay. All right, I will check that out. The Bee Gees, How Can You Mend a Broken Heart? Came out in 2020. Directed by Frank Marshall.
Oh, yeah. The producer, the side guy. Frank Marshall.
Side guy. Okay. All right, there it is. cinnamonipod@gmail.com. Send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. All right. Good.
No emails.
Now it's time. No emails. That's okay. We usually say don't email us. So when we do get an email, we get really annoyed. Now it's time to dive into the main event. This week's edition of Does It Hold Up? Go back to 2015, not too far back in our past. The end of the tour, starring Jason Segel, Jesse Eisenberg as a really heavy dose of both those guys. So if you don't like those guys, you might not enjoy this movie. I'm just saying. But yeah, it's David Foster Wallace is played by Segel. David Foster Wallace, if you don't know, is a famous author, an American author. He wrote, I guess his biggest one was Infinite Jest, right? Was that like his big book?
Tell me at least one of the three of us has read this fucking book. Has one of us read this?
No.
You're a sad guy. Haven't you read it?
No, I bought it. It's been sitting on my shelf for the past 18 years.
I figured we're all sad guys. Yeah, we're all sad guys of a certain age. It seems like at least one of us would have read this, but no. All right. Oh well. I kind of want to.
Our friend of the yeah, I do too. Our friend of the show, Steve, has actually read it, and
that doesn't surprise me.
He told me last week. I was talking to him that he preferred the previous attempt. There was a book that came out before Infinite Jest that he loved. Thought it was a better work by Wallace, and I would defer to Steve entirely on that stuff. But I've read many pages of Infinite Jest, but I cannot say I've read the book. That would be a lie. But David Foster Wallace died in 2008. He killed himself, took his own life, suffered from depression. And that gives you kind of a layout of the end of the tour. So this movie goes back in time to 1996 when David Lipsky, who also is a real person and a writer, interviewed David Foster Wallace for Rolling Stone. So this is all based on real events that happened. Supposedly, I don't know if every word's true, but Travis, was this the first time seeing the film?
No. I saw it when it came out. Yeah, I love Jason Segel. Like I fucking love Jason Segel, and this is the first time that he had really taken on a dramatic role, or not the first time, but like he'd done 5-year engagement and some other kind of like sort of dramatic stuff.
That Duplass movie was right before this. Right? Jeff
Lives at Home.
Yeah, Jeff Lived at Home. A good example. So he had done some drama. Don't get me wrong, but it was still relatively new in his career. And I don't know if you guys are watching Shrinking, but it's fantastic. It's really, really good. I just love it.
Is Harrison Ford phoning it in?
No, Harrison Ford's doing work. He's doing work. Yeah, it's good stuff. But I was reading an article that Segel did for this, and he was talking about what's the directors of this movie again? James Ponsoldt does not roll off the tongue. He was talking about how Ponsoldt, hired him because even at that point, like they were talking to him before, like I think it took like 2 years to get off the ground or something. At any rate, the question at hand was like, he's like, I usually do comedies. I'm not really a drama guy. And he's like, yeah, but you look so sad inside. And that's I think what makes him so well cast for this movie. So yeah, that's what stands out to me. I remember seeing the movie when it came out because of Segel. I really thought it was a wonderful performance, but I had not revisited it until last night.
Eric, this is an A24 release, which speaks for themselves these days, A24. Yeah. And you had finally watched this like a year or so ago or 2 years ago?
Yeah, man, dude. This is one of the, I got the summers off. and I spend the summers just sitting around my fucking house watching movies.
Make it sound miserable.
So you got to put yourself into a beautiful like July morning when it's like rainy and you got nothing to do. This is like the perfect sitting around the house on a rainy day movie. I hit play because I love Jesse Eisenberg. I was so taken aback. I've talked about this movie a couple times on the show. Like I was just so struck, and I got to thinking so much after watching it. And that night, I'm like, "Hon, you have to see this." I showed it to my wife. If you like character studies and like she's big into like character movies, you have to see this. We watched it again that night, and again the same feeling just came over me. Like there hasn't been like a two-hander like this since fucking hell. My Dinner with Andre? Do I dare say it?
2 weeks in a row?
Do I dare say it?
I of course I thought of that movie 2 weeks in a row thinking of My Dinner with Andre, because I thought of that movie watching this too, because you're really just watching a conversation take place.
Yeah, you said that last week when you were talking about women talking. Was that
apparently anytime anyone talks in a movie, I'm going to compare it to My Dinner with Andre now.
These two guys talk. You ever seen this film?
Yeah, you ever seen the ball shot?
Yeah. Got some deep shit to say and whatnot, but
I was a little worried, Michael, to put pen to paper here because I was sitting back on a lazy Saturday afternoon, lazy Tuesday afternoon, but to critique a film like this, I was a little bit worried.
Ooh, well. That could be a
good reason.
A preview of things to come here. I never saw the movie in the theater. I caught it on whatever thing I saw it on, like
VHS
5 years ago. Yeah, VHS. I was able to get a converted DVD back to VHS to watch it on a shitty coaxial cable connection. And boy, this is the way to see this movie. I will say that it kind of came and went to me, and I didn't really recall it ever being in the ether. So, but when I did watch it, it was a pretty fascinating film, and I love Jesse Eisenberg. You know, I always have. Yeah. I forgive him for all his foibles. Lex Luthor already know about. All started for me with Roger Dodger many years ago. So,
Roger Dodger.
I just
one day.
Yeah. I like what he does with film and his characters, and maybe that's just who he is. Maybe he's just a nervous guy, a Woody Allen wannabe. I don't care about that. But him and Jason Segel together was definitely like, oh, this is interesting. And then when you mix in the reality of a real person, David Foster Wallace, who is a very famous author, who's a controversial guy for a lot of reasons, suffers from depression, and there's like this mythos about him that's very real, but at the same time, it's tough to kind of really know. A movie like this really opens up a world because it's based on a true experience between David Lipsky and David Foster Wallace.
It's so true. And you got to think to yourself, as I did, we're three guys who probably wanted to read Infinite Jest, but didn't. Okay? Think about all the people that never even heard of Infinite Jest. They're going into this movie not knowing who the fuck David Foster Wallace is, dude, and we don't really get any excerpts from his books or his prose. So what are they going to be thinking here?
You nailed it. Like, what is the draw for this movie for John Q. Public? Because I mean, let's break it down. Someone wrote a book, so someone else wrote an article about that person who wrote a book. And then that person wrote a book about that person who wrote a book. And then someone made a movie about the person who made the book about the guy who made the book.
That was not authorized by the trust of the person who the book is about.
Right.
Oh, okay.
That's a good point.
Also, this movie, the environment, the universe that this movie exists in really puts writers on a pedestal and makes everybody else think that the general public of the United States is really locked in on who the best writer in the country is and how important that person is. That is just not the reality of the, again, John Q. Public, as you said, Travis.
I did not. I mean, I can make some pretenses that I'm remotely intelligent or plugged into like popular culture and stuff. I did not hear of this person or this book until he took his life. I remember when he died, and then I was like, oh, okay, like, you know, all these articles about him and about the book. I was like, oh, okay, it must be a good book. Oh, it's really long. and there you go. Like, that's, you know, like, but for some people, this book is, you know, it's a black hole. It's sucking everything in. It's like the center of their universe.
Yeah, it's the gospel. So let's do the rating on this.
For
the end of the tour on IMDb rating. It can't be terrible, but it can't be legendary. So I'll just sit on a 7. I'll go rock solid 7.
I was thinking 7-1, so we're in the same ballpark.
Ended the tour 6-8.
Actual retail price 7.2. Travis wins.
I almost said that. All right,
you did. Well, you're close.
but I didn't.
But you did not do that.
No,
You have to live with that now. I'm sorry.
Life's hard.
The end of life is tough. The end of the tour on Rotten Tomatoes, 92 from the critics. They love it. The critics love this movie, I'm sure.
Yeah,
That's obvious. But the audience not far behind with an 82. That's even higher than the IMDb rating. So they really, the people that did watch this movie, it seemed to have spoke to them or stuck with them in some way. According to Rotten Tomatoes.
There's a point in the movie where they talk about who Wallace's audience is. And he says something like, younger men who are kind of sad. I think he says something like that, which that's mostly going to be even those that have not read the book. I think that's the kind of people that are going to be interested in watching this movie for the most part.
42 and sad. I should pick it up.
Yeah. All three of us know something about sadness. That's fair.
42 and sad. All right. Let's start a new podcast.
42 and sad. 42 and sad. Yeah. Let's see what some of the critics have said. How about Pamela Powell of the Daily Journal, which is in parentheses. Maybe this helps because this movie takes place in Illinois. From Kankakee, Illinois, Pamela Powell.
Shot in Michigan.
I got a story about that. I got a big story about that.
Oh, I'd love to hear it.
Coming soon. Yeah. We'll get to it later.
Okay, all right. You bring it up. You're going to bring it back. According to Pamela Powell, the end of the tour is a rare and insightful look into depression and how it affected one brilliantly talented author. Boring. Next.
Wait, that's what she said?
Yeah,
boring.
That's what she said.
Next.
It's just kind of like
boring. A professional critiquer.
It was blatant and obvious. I want something more. Let's see. How about Max Weiss of Baltimore Magazine? Top critic, too. I don't know how you get top critic status on Rotten Tomatoes. It seems pretty easy. Yeah, so I don't know if that's a lauded moniker. I can't speak to its veracity, but I loved Segel's work here. Playing Wallace as someone who overanalyzed everything to a compulsive, near paralyzing degree while still managing to be the most interesting literary guy in the room. Now, that's an excellent review. I like that one. Because Segel was really good. Segel encapsulated the parts so well. I'll talk more about that. So I agree with her there. And the fact that he's overthinking everything, but he can still find a way to make sense of it all, even if it's painfully awful for him. Let's see. Well, a lot of people jumped in on this one because, it's a more recent review. So you get a lot of, we're not going to have Eves because I think he was dead by 2015.
Destin was retired.
Damn it. Boo. Goody Goods. Goody Goods.
Goody Goods.
Goody Goods. Let's see. Peter Howell. Wait. Oh, okay. Peter Howell of the Toronto Star said, it's a movie that makes thoughtful drama out of the essential insanity of celebrity journalism, wherein a star proclaims humility while a scribbler promises idolatry. Okay.
Nothing.
I feel like it's a movie about writing. I better really, polish my pen for this one. And
where's the thesaurus?
Antonyms or synonyms? Leonard Moulton. Lenny Moulton. Ponsolt's done it again in this insightful two-character piece with piercing performances by Segel and Eisenberg. Right before this, he did the Spectacular Now in 2013 with a young Miles Teller, Shailene Woodley, and Brie Larson.
Is that all he had done before this?
That was his first mainstream Hollywood one that I'm aware of. I'll double check on that.
Yeah, he did a movie called Smashed with Aaron Paul about drunks that I've been trying to find, but I can't find it.
He also followed this up with The Circle, which is a movie I didn't see with Tom Hanks.
That was a death knell.
It looked dumb.
Yeah, none of us saw it, really?
It just looked dumb.
Wow,
bombed in theaters too.
Well, I just find it fascinating that none of us actually even saw it.
This was like Hologram for a King era Hanks. It wasn't
like weird, like all of a sudden there's a new movie, but you don't care.
Right. He was overworking.
Yep.
Yeah, he's got it all figured out now, thanks to the Colonel. Richard Roper we know Richard Roper. He worked with Ebert towards the end. The end of the tour is so effective because it's far too smart to engage in ominous foreshadowing. It doesn't engage in that, folks.
It's bookended with his suicide, so there's with the news of his suicide. So there's not any need for ominous undertones.
How about Go ahead, Eric.
I better not.
Oh wow, a better not. How about
when they first meet and he goes to his house and there's this beautiful view like of a cornfield that you and I know very well, but no one else really understands that. What does Jason Segel says? He says, he praises him for this beautiful view, and then David says, "Oh, I can't take credit for it."
Yeah,
I mean that's the movie. That's the whole fucking movie. Like somebody is putting on David these incredible things that maybe he's not really responsible for, i.e., all of the accolades that are just preponderance of reporters saying that this is an incredible work, where he's just like, I'm just doing my thing. I don't know. I thought it was fortunate.
Okay. That's a good point. Ty Burr said, made with love and skill, the movie deserves to be seen. Day! Nice fucking review, asshole. All right, we'll close it out with, I got two more real quickly. My personal preference, I always like Ann Hornaday from the Washington Post.
Of course.
She says, a thoughtful, moving testament to genuine connection. And then finally, Bill Goodycoons of the Arizona Republic. On August 6, 2015, Goodycoons said the following. The film consists of the two men talking and not a lot else. But the performances by Jason Segel as Wallace and Jesse Eisenberg as Lipsky are perfect. So he doesn't like the talking, but he likes the characters who are talking.
All right, so take the movie, but make them werewolves. And then I'm going to be entertained.
Make this movie about anything. As long as those two actors are in this movie, I don't give a shit if it's about two guys sitting on a toilet.
You got zombie Nazis you can put in this?
Yeah. So this movie was filmed in Michigan, huh? Because that's really intriguing to me. When I see that house that house looks like a house. I swear I've seen that house on Argentine Road in Heartland, Michigan. It looked just like it.
That car driving past KFC and Taco Bell is so Midwest.
Yeah, it's where we live. This movie takes place where we're from. I mean, but only it's not. It's on the other side of the state because it's like Grand Rapids and like Hudsonville, but still very, very.
That gas station with JW Tuxedo in the background of that strip mall that has never seen business since day one. That's so Midwest. And I'm scrolling through my emails because my big thing was I'm trying to find the email from my old talent agency because I booked an extra role on this. I was booked to be one of the extras in the reading, like when Lipsky does his reading at the end.
What happened?
But I couldn't do it. I had to go to my real job that day. But this is West Michigan.
That'd have been awesome if you'd been in it. I think that also the movie's like saying something about, because like it's also a very beautiful area, right? Like the winter, to me, Midwest in the winter is as beautiful as it gets. That's why I fucking love that shit. So we get a lot of that in the movie, and it looks gorgeous. But then we also have it like juxtaposed with just the most banal fucking suburbia crap, just a strip of like Burger Kings and Taco Bells and bullshit.
Midas muffler. Yeah.
Right. And then you get to go back to like his little haven with the giant window, that giant like front room window. He's so exposed, right? He's so on display. So, I mean, but that house is beautiful. And I've seen so many houses like that. So believable.
I love it in movies when somebody's house looks like a real house.
Yes. Exactly.
This house does that. I swear. I go back down Argentine Road. There's a house that looks like that. It's very weird. It's sprawling. Model. It's open area. It's winter. That car too. One of our friends had a car that color too. It was that was Morgan's car, basically, wasn't it? I mean, yeah. So that just, to me, that's why this movie is really. It's not its focus, but it's one of the. Let's go back and visit the 90s quintessential films. This movie is so 90s, and it's not even about that, but I love that about this.
It's super 90s, and I'm glad you brought that up, because, like, for one, they smoke nonstop through this movie. You want to set a movie in the 90s and make it appear accurate, have the guys smoke constantly, because we all smoked constantly. And the other thing, I mean, this soundtrack, to kick it off with New Orleans Instrumental #1 by REM,
Oh,
You got Gold Sounds popping in later, and then they end with this beautiful
Tender
cover
Sticks.
of Here by the Tender Sticks.
Oh my
And
God.
there's this soundtrack is so on point, dude. It's
so fucking good.
Brian Eno, like and I love REM, dude. I don't care what anyone says. Fucking REM is great. And
These are deep cuts.
Yeah, exactly. This is like the good stuff.
People don't like REM anymore? Am I missing something?
Well, I mean, I don't think that people don't like REM, but it seems to me like people kind of treat REM kind of like they treat U2, only not as toughly, not as roughly. People are a little kinder to REM than U2, but like early U2 is incredible, and I will not be dissuaded of that fact. And REM, good throughout their entire career from beginning to end, in my opinion.
Not familiar with these opinions. This is
lots of people. I talked to some snobs. What can I say? I mean, lots of snobby folk in my life. Maybe
that's fair. Music snobs. I know Leanne had her own musical journey cut short by High School Music Snobs. They turned her off from exploring further into the record store, and I am disappointed they did that.
These gatekeepers didn't open the gate.
That's right. Those fucking gatekeepers. But yeah, this movie looks like Illinois. It feels like the 90s. The smoking. They even have chewing tobacco. They take it even farther. I mean, this guy, David Foster Wallace, smokes. He chews. They do so many things with the garbage food and, the drive time and having to, not have an Uber driver. Somebody picks them up and they got to take taxis. Just little things like that. It's a great slice of life 90s movie. But more than that, it is about the genius of David Foster Wallace. So, at the same time, it's a conversation. I'm curious how you guys look at it as hey, this is a David Foster Wallace movie, but really it's it's about fame and celebrity, depression and the pain within, existence, all of these things that he probably wrote about in that 1,000-page book I haven't read.
Where do we start? I've got so much to say.
Hit it.
You just said that this is a David Foster Wallace movie, and yet David Foster Wallace is dead. He can't comment on whether or not he would even want this film to be in production, which I absolutely fucking guarantee you he would not.
Right.
We have the family that does not want to have anything to do with the film. And we've got stuff in this movie, even though it's taken from a book, which was in itself taken from transcripts, that the fucking guy would never in a million years would want to be in a movie for people sitting in a movie theater. This is a guy who was sitting in a movie theater for Broken Arrow. He doesn't want anybody fucking knowing this shit. In fact, he tells us in this script, don't put this in, don't put that in. Yeah. And this guy has the balls to make this a feature film about the fucking guy, which is supposed to be the David Foster Wallace movie.
Well, I don't know David Lipsky. I don't know his work. I think it's weirdly brave of him to present himself as such a fucking asshole in this movie. But clearly this is Clout Chaser, the movie. I mean, like that's what the book is. It's like Wallace died and hey, I had 5 days with this individual over 12 years ago and he didn't like me very much. I'm going to make a book about it. And then the movie, it's kind of bizarre.
When he was on antidepressants, clearly not in a good stage in his life, let's demoralize and make a fictitious representation of this man for in perpetuity and on film, like as if this is supposed to be who he was.
On the other hand, with if we give Lipsky the benefit of the doubt that most of the dialogue here and all the filmmakers, that the dialogue here is literally directly from the recordings of them talking, which you're right, there's a violation of trust left and right throughout this movie. The movie existing, the book existing seems like a violation of trust, and I'm with you. That said, to have such a, because I imagine that a lot of people like approach this movie the way that Lipsky approached Wallace, like in awe of who is this master who will inspire me. And instead he's like making fart jokes and just kind of cuddling with his dogs, and he gets jealous and he's petty and he's insecure and he's just a normal fucking human. So like, I really love that this movie is so filled with just like profundity and like the most like common average moments, like back and forth, exactly, back and forth, like side by side. You have just mundanity and profundity, and it's just like, and the shit that comes out of this character's mouth, like I'm like scribbling all this down, like it's like this, like stabs me in the fucking heart. It's so true and so real and so genuine. And I know that must be the truth for so many other people. So part of me is also like, yeah, but like, it's okay that this betrayal of trust took place because we get this inside look at this really incredibly sensitive man. I can't even say he's talented because I haven't read the book, but he certainly had amazing things to say just in conversation.
Well, Michael, is it? Do you feel it's sacrilege, dishonest, distrustful to the man that's passed away, or do you think this is something that I'm thinking? I'm writing down like, well, if you have all these great stories about Hemingway, you gotta fucking tell them.
Yeah, this is a difficult area because you have what you could debate as ownership of a situation. And David Lipsky did participate in this, so he has some say. He's the only guy alive, though. David Foster Wallace is dead. He can't say anything about it. But I also have the opinion, when you're dead, who gives a fuck? Even if you if you die knowing that the people you trust the most in this world are gonna tell you out loud, I will keep your secrets, I will preserve your integrity and your privacy, I promise you this until you die. And then you die knowing that. So as long as you die knowing that, you won't know what happens after the fact because you'll be dead. So I do understand the debate here, but once you're dead, who cares? If we get the chance to have further discussions and possibly advance ourselves individually and as a group because of access to this discussion.
And like I said, Lipsky, as you make a good point that he's got some shared ownership in these experiences as well, and he lays himself bare here. I mean, he really, I feel uncomfortable in a lot of scenes that he's in, the way that he's acting. For one, because it's like familiar. I think we've all kind of acted that way. Like you can empathize with both of these characters.
Like when he hits on he says David Foster Wallace gets pissed that he's hitting on his girl from grad school.
He so clearly is.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Lipsky
but he also
looks like
clearly kind of convinces David that he wasn't. That's where the complexity of Jason Segel's performance works for me.
Yeah.
But that's the point to Travis's point, that Lipsky is putting himself on blast here by looking like an asshole, and he's the one who allowed this movie to kind of happen because he's giving the information that we are using to make this movie. So give him...
Wallace comes out looking like a very human saint, and Lipsky comes out looking like a fucking vulture.
Pipsqueak wannabe.
Pipsqueak wannabe. Yeah, your book, The Art Fair, sucked and nobody cared. And it's so funny.
It won awards.
It did win awards?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's well acclaimed. I never read it either.
That is a whole nother story, by the way. Academia and the literary world of the United States, with all these awards and these prestigious honors that nobody else gives a shit about. They make themselves seem like they're so self-important. Do you know what I think? A guy like David Lipsky would go through a bar like he does in the beginning of the movie, and like 8 different people say, "Hey, sorry, I missed your book already. Hey, did you catch that other book? Hey, have you read this new book?" Like, that's not how people talk. No.
Well, maybe, I mean, like, if you're in a very
world.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. If you're in a very insular kind of environment, you know, like you were in like in the music scene of Ann Arbor and Flint for a while, like you kind of start to see the same faces and that kind of stuff.
I read The Arsonist's Daughter last night. That last chapter was breathtaking.
I am a writer.
Yeah, man. That's why I love this writing world. Every time I watch a fucking movie about a writer, I turn it off and I'm like, God damn it, where's the paper? Where's my goddamn pencil?
You guys think of the time? Go ahed.
No, I just felt the urge to pick up a book to read it instead of write it. But what were you going to say? Mike?
That makes sense. I want you guys, if you can recall, I was trying to think of times in my life where I was so pissed or such a dick to like my friend or somebody I loved because they had pissed me off for some inane reason, like what happens with both these guys that night at the hotel. They come back, they don't say a word, then the next day they fly all the way back, they don't say a word, and then they get to the parking lot and they got to find the car, but David Lipsky can't find the car, and then David Foster Wallace is pissed. He's like, how do you not know where you parked the car? And then they have this finally, after tons of awkward silence, which happened for hours upon hours, they finally start having at it in the car. But it made me think of times when I was younger and immature, and I was such a dick for pointless reasons where I wouldn't speak to my friend because I was pissed. Where? It so took me back.
But these
15 minutes of pouting in a feature film.
And these guys aren't even friends. As Foster, David Foster Wallace likes to remind people, they just met, which is true. They're not fucking friends, and that's one of the things that, to me, like, to your comparison to the Banshees of Inisherin, because the movie starts end of the end of the tour, and you see that these are two peas in a pod. These are two guys very of a like mind, and they should become really good friends, and they almost do. And I'm reminded as I watch this movie that, like, men like to complain about women being divisive or coming between them and all that, but it's never or rarely the women that are actually doing that. It's the territorial fucking bullshit egomania status shit that men put on it instead, because on one hand, like, Lipsky is a dick to hit on this woman when he's got a girl at home too, to hit on this woman that he knows Wallace has history with directly in front of him. It's a dick move. On the other hand, they dated in grad school, which would have been a decade beforehand. They were not that serious. Like, why is Wallace, why is he like being so possessive here?
He is absolutely,
because he's unstable.
Right. They're both insecure. That's what it is.
That's it. You've got Wallace's insecurity, and yet you have Lipsky's absolutely intrinsic need to imprint his needs on every situation in this entire film. Mm-hmm. He needs to be important, thought of as a great writer from the get-go. I don't know why he takes on this assignment.
But no, that's why it happens, because he is so jealous and he wants to maybe get some of the Wallace to rub off on him. I think that's the genesis for why the original assignment starts, Eric.
Yeah. When he's reading the book and he's like, shit.
That's the best part, because I've been there so many times. Yeah. Like, when I wanted to be a stand-up comic, I would sit in there while doing like my research. And like every time like somebody got a big joke and I was watching them, I would get pissed. And that's what people with ego problems do. Yeah. It took me so long to set my ego problems aside. And like, this is one of the great films, in my opinion, about ego, rivalry, competition. Like, I used to have someone in my life that I was so competitive with, and I was such a rival with, that it would make me sick at night. I had to talk to my therapist about this many, many times, and I finally overcame this in a weird way. I mean, basically, I had to get to the point. My therapist told me, get to the point where you can do exactly what they do and think that you can do it just as well as them. And then that animosity will go away. And it did. And I put in that work, and that feeling went away. This is what Lipsky is trying to do. And they make it a big point in this film to talk about how these are young men with young men problems that we can relate to. And I think that's why we all love this film. I don't mean to show all of our cards, but there's so many things that these characters do, not necessarily say, but just do, that we understand, which makes it for a great movie.
Yeah. I think about my silent treatment example extraordinaire is we lived in the Rot House. This place called Rot House, the house we rented for the summer in 1999. And it was about a girl. Oftentimes these awkward silences and these jealousy comes down not just to the literary work, but to women. I remember our friend Brandon, who's dead now, rest in power, my brother, but he got with this girl that I was so jealous that he got with her, and I wouldn't talk to him for like a week by giving him silent treatment nonstop. It's so immature, but it does happen. Guys are babies, and they get hyper competitive and jealous as fuck. And I'll take full responsibility for myself.
Then they deny
and the way I acted in that moment as a barely 19-year-old. But at the same time, Lipsky deserves credit. If we're going to shit on him for opening up the vault here, he deserves credit for putting himself on blast. He looks like a jealous, rage-filled guy who's dying to get more attention and be the writer that everybody in the world would adore him for, which is what Wallace seems to have. And as they talk about at the end of the movie, he talks about how he has something I want, and meanwhile, Wallace is still searching for something more.
And they're not that young, right? They're not 19 young.
30 and 34, right?
30 and 34. So they're young men, but they're grown-ass men. And they're kind of like just at that point where like they're starting to fix their problems in some ways, which is one of the things we learn a lot about Wallace in particular, that like, God, that scene when towards the end, when Lipsky is like doggedly going after him about his suicide attempt and his depression, it's so brutal. But you really see that this is someone who lived, like, as he said, a very American life, like regular life, and almost fucking died because of it, and ultimately died anyways. But and he came through it and he grew, and like you see that growth, but you also see that he's still struggling with that former stuff.
That you just hit a point. I gotta dive on that because the American way, right? David Foster Wallace, I didn't read all his work, so again, we can't comment on that. But in this movie, he's constantly talking about how American these certain tenets of our culture are. Like when he's in the suicide watch and he thought he could fix A, B, and C by doing A, B, and C in a very American way. Like, I'm going to fix this problem by running 10 miles a day, or, you know, and he also,
what they told me to do.
Right.
Yeah. I love that this movie exposes, because I don't think it's talked about enough. Maybe I'm missing the TED Talks or the books and the blogs or the videos that are being more honest about the American. It's not about the American dream. It's about this can-do, do-it-yourself attitude that leads you to nowhere.
It's the romanticism of a couple of things: drug use and people that have depression. David Wallace in this movie talks about, he describes his most horrible situation as being alone in this fucking room with a drain that you can pee in, puke in, do whatever you want in. And it's complete loneliness. What I love about the script is the screenwriter, who I guess was James Ponsol's like playwright teacher, which I think is very cool.
Donald
says,
Morgan.
hey, yeah, you could probably write this for me. He decides to bring that in. And I don't know if this is in the book or not, but like, you have this back and forth, tete-a-tete, and he decides to press him on it, even though his editor has been on him all weekend. And he's like, no, I just want to talk to this guy. But he decides to ask him that question when he's pissed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, when do we decide to like actually attack the people that we envy or that we appreciate? Well, when we get hurt, that's when we put our shit on other people.
Like it's also like, that reminds me of the scene when he starts accusing David Foster Wallace of being false, which is two things. One, so fucking demonstrably untrue. This guy is so like a raw nerve genuine, and
it pisses him off. So genuine that it makes him mad.
And Lipsky knows that he's being genuine, and he knows that like the one thing that really David Foster Wallace worries about is how people perceive him, and the concerns that people are going to perceive him as being inauthentic. And so to call him false is just so vindictive. It's so like calculated, and it's not to like further the interview. It's pure pettiness.
Yeah, he says it in response to David Lipsky. He says, "Oh, this is a very clever tactic on your part, to get me kind of uncomfortable and out of my element," and that's true. Yeah, I don't think that's what he's doing either. I really don't. But at the same time, he doesn't know him. Lipsky is meeting Wallace for the first time. I think it's a fair thing to at least question, even if it's filled with a tinge of jealousy and frustration of the way the whole last 24 hours in the movie went down, because they're not talking and after hitting on his grad school partner. But this is why I loved the movie. It's because it hits honestly on these real issues that you don't have answers to. Like, I don't think we get clarity on a lot of stuff in this movie, but as you said, you write down a lot of great moments and points because it makes so much sense to you, yet we're still unclear on a lot of things. And that's life.
It would be a challenge, but it would be absolutely like Hollywood to say, David Foster Wallace died? Let's do the biopic and do the Akiva Goldsman, Ron Howard, A Beautiful Mind treatment on this shit, and make this guy look to be like a fucking saint. This movie decides to make him look like the complete antithesis of this, which is a regular guy who likes junk food, television, and completely deconstruct him as this genius or savior or deity or whatever you want to call it. This movie has the balls to make geniuses regular people. We never used to see that.
He's so relatable, right? Like like you expect him to be this inaccessible genius, but instead, like, he's so relatable throughout the movie. He's saying and doing things that I think like for me at least, like ring so true. Like, as a single guy who only has dogs, like when he's talking about how like Like when he says like the whole like dogs are easier because you never have to worry about hurting their feelings. Like, I was like,
yeah,
oh my god, like he fucking nailed it.
He nailed
like,
it.
Exactly.
He nailed it.
He's dying to know. They say early on in that diner, I'm dying to know if you like me. I'm terrified. You know, I don't know if I like you yet.
Yeah,
There's
and the
this
look,
constant anxiety for him.
Right, and the look on Lipsky's face when he's told that, because Lipsky's going like, should I? You know, he's going to meet him like worried about bringing his book, worried he's going to look like an asshole, thinking that this guy's going to be amazing, and to learn that he is worried that Lipsky's going to like him, and Lipsky instead like kind of like uses that, I guess. But it's fascinating.
Yeah, Anna Klopsky's in the movie too. That's cool, right?
Yeah, she gets to sit in the chair and
girl.
talk on the phone. We get to hear her on the phone.
And Lipsky gets pissed. Lipsky gets pissed.
25 minutes.
Like,
I was keeping track.
Yeah, I timed it. And back to that point, though, Travis, he also shows up saying, why don't you live in New York? Why do you live out here? That also says a lot about how David Foster Wallace is a very typical dude in a way he doesn't want to be. He said it so well, too. It's like a inflation and constant deflation of egos huffing and puffing when he's in New York. I love that line. I'm like, yeah, you know what? He summed up New York a lot better than I ever could.
When Lipsky walks into the house and he's like, should I offer you tea or something? It's like, yeah, this guy never has guests. He never has guests. He's got like shit stains on his floor and stuff piled all over the place. He never has guests.
So when they're talking about addiction and what addictions are sexy and which some are not as addictive or not as sexy, right? His television addiction is very strong, right? He's really addicted to TV, but that's not sexy.
A dumb addiction.
Of course, yeah. It's
not sexy.
Oh well,
96,
yeah. It's not. It's definitely not sexy, but it, again, relatable and real. Like when he talks about, you know, you're dying. You're like you're in a very meaningful way. Yeah, you'll die, right? And I'm watching the movie, being like, "Fuck, we got a movie podcast. I watch like 20 movies a week. I'm dying. I'm dead."
Yeah, we're sitting in front of screens, giving money to them, to people who don't care about us whatsoever. We're going to die in a really meaningful way.
They don't love you, right? And so this comes early in the movie, and I'm like, oh, I feel judged, and like he's right. And then the movie goes on, and you see the way that he responds when he's like, sorry, I couldn't, I was late. There was a big marathon on, or like the way he's watching TV.
Falcon Crest.
Over at Falcon Crest, over at someone else's house. He's fucking like just sucked in.
He sells it completely.
Yeah.
He's sitting straight
he's watching the movie. Can't grab the can. He doesn't look down to grab his Coke can.
To listen to every single word about it. And and you forget, like, you could watch this movie, and even I watched the preview to the movie. And in the preview, like, you got two guys talking like intellectually while they're at the fucking Mall of America about to watch Broken Arrow, two of the most consumerist fucking things you can ever think of in your entire life.
Right?
But that's what people like to do. Like, that's what makes
he's not above the
happy.
Trappings. He's not above those trappings of the society. He admits that freely. And it makes it more relatable. But at the same time, he's a depressed, bipolar maybe. Who knows? It could be BPD. And he could have a lot of things here that make him he says, I'm very difficult to be around. And Lipsky's like, no way, you're great. No, for real, I really am.
I tried to do my homework, Michael, and I watched a couple of pretty long interviews with the guy. And he's a very good talker. He doesn't seem nervous. He actually seems extremely combative to the three interviewers that I watched him on the television, which tells me a couple of things: that the guy's not afraid to express himself, and that he's extremely worried, as the movie tells us, about how he's going to be portrayed or about what anybody says about him. Because in a few times, the interviewer would try to connotate something or quote him, and he'd be like, whoa, back up. Didn't say that, actually meant this. That's why the movie worries me a little bit.
Well, so that brings me to, I think, one of the more interesting points of the film. So they have this, burgeoning friendship. Things fall apart in Minneapolis. And then they go back to his house, and everything's all awkward and weird. And they fight. They straight up fight. And then the next morning, Wallace is like, hey, buddy, and like tapping him on the shoulder, and like, hey, you sleep good? And like, he's all buddy with them. And like, I'm watching the movie, and part of me is like, so I've been watching Wallace this whole time, this character of Wallace anyways, and thinking like, this guy is genuine. This guy is a really good dude. Like he's flawed. He's insecure, but he's like a really good man. And he's just kind of like able to put this aside and move forward. But also there's a little tiny part that he would hate for me to think, maybe because there's an element of truth to it, that he's trying to salvage the relationship with this guy before he goes away to sit down to write about him, because he knows he just spent 5 days with him. He's got all of this juicy material and he could frame it exactly as he, like Wallace says, any way he wants. So like, is it a sincere, like, hey, we've made this moment of connection? I don't think so, because he doesn't want to hug. He wants to shake hands.
And the shoe at the end, the shoe in the box. Lipsky's so excited. He gets a package from Wallace and he thinks it's going to be a note about the book that Lipsky wrote, The Art Fair. It's just a shoe he left behind. Yours, I presume? That's it. That's all you get. There's no further follow-ups.
Yeah, he said he'd send him notes about the art fair, but I don't think he ever read it.
No, me neither. Think about this, Lost Weekend being played out from David Wallace's point of view. I mean, we got to have a completely different story here. Mm-hmm. That's interesting to me, because basically what Lipsky is doing, what we're doing, is assuming these intentions here in these 4 days.
Yeah.
That's tricky. It had to be pretty tough to write this fucking thing.
And that's, again, that gets back to like one of our original problems. Like, these guys are not that close. Lipsky didn't know him that well. Like, it's a fascinating watch, but it's a bold move to be like, yeah, I spent 5 days with this guy. I'm going to write a book about it.
Yeah. And yet they really try to attempt to make this, dare I say, like a love story, like a meet cute type of thing, where you have all the levels of, we met, it fell apart, we had the, Dark Night of Sorrow, and then we tried to make up. I'd like the way they structure it. I think it keeps me entertained as a viewer. Mm-hmm. But what am I left with here? Like, I don't know much anything about how Wallace wrote. I can
you might have to read him.
I can accept that, like, he's this great writer based on what they tell me, which is that he's a great writer. Do I need a scene of him reading from his book? I guess not. I'll do that on my own.
If you don't have time, he wrote a lot of essays and short stories too, so you can get a taste in a much more compact opportunity. But
is it asking too much to just say, like, hey, this guy is right up there with James Joyce and all these other big names they bring in? Or do they need something to give an audience?
I don't know that they necessarily do, because I mean, we talk about you referenced earlier, we didn't say it by name, we just quoted the movie, but you referenced Wonder Boys earlier, and we don't get to read James, we don't get to read any of the characters' works, and that we get maybe a sentence or two from, but you don't really get an idea from that. Or something like let me think of some other examples. I had another one in my head, but it's left me now. But I mean, yeah. Oh, Tar. That's what I was going to say. Like, Tar is like a fictional thing, but you turned it off, so maybe that's not the best example. But like, we're told that she's an incredible conductor, that she's at the top of her game and stuff throughout the movie. We see her conduct, but I don't know fuck all about conducting. She could just be flapping her arms around. But she did in real life. Cate Blanchett did so much training that she was like waking up, conducting in her sleep. So she like really knew what she was doing. But as a viewer, I don't know. So I don't know that it matters. We can just kind of take them at their word that, oh, okay, he's a genius.
Well, you get Lipsky reading his post-mortem, what's it called? Although, of course, you end up becoming yourself is what the movie is technically based on. That's the book that Lipsky wrote about his time
the end,
with Wallace.
Or something, you end up becoming yourself.
Yeah. Although, of course, you end up becoming yourself.
Okay, that's what
and he's reading that, Lipsky is, at the end of the film, and he says, similar to Salinger's and F. Scott Fitzgerald, you're not looking for a particular experience about traveling worldwide. You get a chance to see what it's like to be that writer, to become them. And when Lipsky is arguing with Wallace earlier in the car, he says, you don't crack open 1,000-page opus for the writer to just be an ordinary guy. You want him to be brilliant. I really thought that was probably true, frankly. Like, there has to be something unique or unusual, I suppose, about a writer and their piece that makes you want to read it.
That's so funny. That makes me think, because Lipsky wants that status. He wants that level of talent. He wants to be like Wallace, but at the same time, he's disappointed that Wallace is so much like him. Right?
He says, I'm not so sure you want to be me at the end, right? I don't. Do you guys believe that?
I do actually. By that point, I think he wants his talent, but he doesn't want to be him.
Right. I was going to clarify. So yeah, he doesn't want to be the everyday Wallace. He wants the accolades and the outcome,
That's it.
the product.
Yeah, maybe not even the talent, just the attention would be enough.
I don't know.
That's fair.
I would have maybe appreciated the scene at the end where Lipsky's reading and there's an audience there, and the audience is, whereas a viewer is like, God, this is beautiful writing, but it's Lipsky's writing. To maybe show us a parallel between somebody who's made it and someone who is actually extremely good, but just not at the level of David Wallace.
Yeah, I think there's literally an Academy Award winning performance here from Segel. Jason Segel
Absolutely.
is incredible.
There's no doubt about it. Best actor, way more so than Leo DiCaprio, who won that year.
Okay, yes, exactly. So Leo won that year. Cranston was nominated for Trumbo, Matt Damon for The Martian, Fassbender for Steve Jobs, and Eddie Redmayne for The Danish Girl. And then for supporting actors, we have Mark Rylance won for Bridge of Spies, Bale won for Big Short, Tom Hardy for The Revenant, Mark Ruffalo for Spotlight, which took Best Picture that year, and Sylvester Stallone for Creed, which I've not seen. So, like, I feel like I've not seen all this stuff, but I know that there was some buzz for both of these guys, and I after watching the movie, I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I could have seen either one or both getting nominated for this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, someone might make the argument that these two characters together are what really makes the picture. But I stress again, yeah, it is a fair argument. Absolutely. I stress again it's like Segel is Wallace, and I've never met David Foster Wallace. I never will. He's dead. But the way he's consistently shows, yeah, he is that guy. It's not easy to do that. It's not like it's Jason Segel. To me, Jason Segel is David Foster Wallace because I don't have a lot of experience with the real Wallace. So I actually think of Segel more as the version of Wallace, which I think says it all about an elite, unique, award-worthy performance.
And he does genuinely look a lot like him. Like it was good casting all around.
What's with the bandana?
Dude, he's keeping a low profile. Like, a lot of actors will talk about how they don't want you to know jack shit about them, because the more you know about them, the less you're going to believe in the character when you go to watch the film. And we don't really, what the fuck do we know about Jason Segel? Not that much. Did he work with Judd Apatow early on? He's kind of staying out of it. Like, I got the opportunity to see him in person when I saw The Discovery, which is a fucking fantastic movie that he is great in.
Oh, I did see
and he was just a really friendly guy that I was too scared to talk to, even though he was like 5 feet from me. I'm like, I'm getting the fuck out of here.
I straight up, I have a man crush on him. I'm just gonna say it. Like, I'd love.
Oh, yeah,
I would probably just like come back to consciousness and I'm like hugging him or something. Like, oh shit, sorry, didn't mean to be wrapped around it.
He was right there, and yet I couldn't do it. But I mean, to do something like this, what he's doing in this role is he's encapsulating a lifetime and a future in 4 days of screen time. I mean, Jesse Eisenberg's playing a reporter, and he actually does a really fucking good job as Lipsky, because he doesn't sit back and listen. He interjects very, very often throughout the film. You watch Eisenberg like I did on this third viewing, and he's doing a lot more than I suspected that he was in the first 1 or 2 viewings. He's trying to interject. He's got his own shit going on all the fucking time. But Segel is doing so much complexity in very small moments for a character who is in a big point in his life. Don't forget, he wanted this interview to happen, and yet the entire fucking time he's saying, "Don't put this in, don't put that in."
Right. He's at war with himself because he like hates his need for attention.
Yeah, but and yet the Rolling Stone interview he's agreeing to.
Right. I think you make a really good point. Like it's easy. Like, Segel got the juicier role. I mean, it's also like a more likable character. Yeah, much more likable in my opinion. But you're right. Eisenberg is. I mean, there is just constant stuff boiling underneath it. Like I'm convinced that Segel is Wallace, but I'm convinced that Eisenberg is Lipsky. He does. I mean, this. I agree, Mike. I think that Eisenberg is a super talented guy. He will win an Oscar in his lifetime, I think. And yeah, it's kind of easy to look past him at Segel in this, but we shouldn't give him short shrift. He's pretty incredible in this.
Hey, Travis, make sure you give Ron Livingston his credit in this movie. Incredible performance. And of course, you got
Was it a cameo?
Joe Cusack.
Yeah, Joan Cusack, right? That's what I was going to say earlier. You said someone's picking them up. I'm like, someone? It's fucking Joan Cusack. Like,
that's right.
It seems like she's too big of an actor for that role, right? Like that's where you bring in Anna Chlumsky. Although this was Chlumsky before Veep, so like she was still kind of like in the background. These days, she's more of a hot commodity again, and rightly so. I think she's good. But yeah,
those two girls are people.
I recognize both of them, but yeah, Cusack is almost distracting. I mean, she's good, but it's like like maybe what's her name? Sometimes I question your commitment to Sparkle Motion. What's her name?
Mm-hmm.
Like she would, you know what I mean? Like someone like that would have been really good. She's great. I usually think of that
exactly with the two girls that are the competition. Since we don't know them, they're like, two cute girls. Not here's Joan Cusack.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just kind of too small a role, and maybe the same is true with Ron Livingston too. But I guess they got to try and put some names in there. But yeah, it's awfully like, I don't know. It's almost weird to have someone of her stature be in that role.
Yeah, and that's Meryl Streep's daughter, and the other one is the daughter of Sting. The two girls who hang out.
That's right. I knew that. Yeah, Meryl Streep's daughter. Yeah. She's in. I think she's. What is she in? She's so familiar.
That movie with Meryl Streep. It's named after the band. That stupid movie I saw like a few months ago. Somebody and the Boys.
I didn't watch that one. It's like the only Meryl Streep movie I'll probably never watch. But you're right. I will watch it because it looks so fucking terrible. She plays like this 80s rock star.
Yeah, she's like a old time band rock and roller, and everybody hates her. It's Ricky and the Flash. That's what it was. Ricky and the Flash. Streep's daughter's in that. Does a good job actually in that movie. I will say that.
Well, she comes from great stock. So yeah, maybe I'm being harsh to Joan Cusack because she's just fine in the role, but
it could have been anybody. It's about the two guys, and that's all that matters. The conversation, the discussion. There's so much more. I mean, we should probably get close to the end here, but let's get to the final talking points before we close it out so we don't miss anything key that you guys want to talk about. Anything?
I think I've made most of the points I wanted to make. I mean, I think the one thing that we haven't really discussed much, and we have a little bit, but it's just such a fucking bummer, of course, is the issue of suicide, which the movie... I think it handles it okay. It handles it pretty well because like it doesn't indulge in like how he did it. I still don't know how he did it. I don't need to know. It's not my business. And he it's a tragedy. We get that sense of tragedy throughout because we know that he's dead at the beginning of the film. And we also get these constant like insights that he has been suicidal, that he's overcome suicidal thoughts and like all this stuff. So you get like this, you get the feeling like Lipsky did that he's okay. He's going to be okay. So I do like that the movie, it really drives home. Maybe that's obvious, but it like you feel that loss. I've never read a word from this man, but I feel the loss of, like how unjust it is that he's gone. And also that he was just too sensitive to live. Like he just was so analytical and so sensitive that he just could not help but be in constant sorrow.
Yeah. And he talks about his past as a jock too. He had, all these different interests, and reading was an afterthought for him or just something fun to do when he was younger. And then he develops into this guy who's a prolific writer, or at least a very talented writer. Even if you don't like him, I think he's pretty talented.
He must be. They made a movie about him. They call him a genius a bunch in it.
I know there was some. I guess this is worth mentioning. He was accused of some disappointing behavior with women after he was long dead. I always find that difficult, especially when the person's dead. Yeah, this came up during Me Too. I mean, he's been dead for almost 10 years, and then some Me Too stuff came up in 2017. I'm not going to go through all the details of it. You guys can Google it and check it out at your own will.
Well, I won't. I mean, I know nothing about it, and I'm not going to damn him or condone any of it, but he's clearly someone, at least this character that we're introduced to the movie, he's someone that just like he talks about, and again, like I can just so relate, even as someone that he knows when someone's interested in him, he wants them to make the first move. Like he's clearly not great with women. Like I could see where maybe he did some really clumsy, terrible things.
He doesn't want to appear to be trading sex for his, his fame and his opportunity and his talent now. But of course, as he says,
I'd absolutely do it.
I'd be happy to do that. Of course, I just don't want to look that way. That is a great, honest line.
And then Lipsky like offering to like act as like, I don't know, Rolling Stone / pimp to try and get him hooked up with Alanis Morissette. Like it was so weird, but like it's also kind of, it's 1996. Like these guys are gonna it makes sense for them to view that position as they're nerd guys. Like they don't have any confidence. They've got to find like some upper hand in their mind.
Oh man, you know what? This was my third viewing of the film, and I just couldn't wait to see it again. This is the type of movie I knew when you called this, Mike, I was like, okay, bring it on. Like this is the type of movie I know I'm gonna watch so many more times in my life because it just makes me feel so good for reasons I really can't understand. Because I love movies about writers, because I love conversations in movies, which you don't get a lot of. I'm watching it yesterday, and there's one scene and only one that had to pause because I was tearing up and I just started crying, and I didn't want to miss anything, so I turned it off. And it was when that first night, that conversation between Lipsky and Wallace just stops and he says, what he wants to say is, I like talking to you. And I'm an introvert, and I've struggled my whole life with having conversations with people to the detriment of a fucking huge joke between guys that I love to corner you guys and talk to you. But, it just, when you have a meaningful conversation with someone that does something to you, I mean, that has a big impact on you because people like me, and I'm not going to compare myself in any way to David Wallace, but it means so much to hear somebody's perspective and to just give you something just on a one-on-one basis. And for me, this is a one-on-one movie. Might even want to be one of the best. When you can sit in a movie and hear two people talking and get something out of it, relate to it, like I do, it just means so much. I didn't fucking read Infinite Jest. It's been sitting on my shelf since 1998 when I bought it to tell people that I've read it, which I never did. So if I told you I read it, I was fucking lying. Great geniuses, people that are great at something are just people, and they need the same things as everybody else, man. We need to stop. I don't know if we need to do this. I mean, it might even help us to look up to people. We just need to consider people a lot more. And one of the great things the movies do is encourage us to consider people a lot more. And there's so much more going on under the surface. I mean, this seems too much for a movie review, but if you have the capacity to pick up the phone and talk to someone and just ask them how they're doing, do it. Because a lot of people need that, man. A lot of people you think that are on top might think of themselves as being on the bottom.
Yeah.
This movie illustrates that very appropriately in a way that's sleek, cool, beautifully told, beautifully shot, and not showy. It's like the anti-biopic, man. Like when I talked about this last year, I said the same thing I'm saying tonight. We don't have to feel the need to bow down to these people and praise them just because they're famous. What we should do is see them as people and maybe read a little bit more about them. I think it's going to help us a lot. I love the film. Cannot wait to see it again. It completely holds up. It's a masterpiece.
Well, that was that was a good one. Nice job.
Too much.
No.
That was. I think Wallace would appreciate the the genuine emotion behind what you say.
That's right. I second that emotion. I picked this movie because it's so thought-provoking, and in a way, I kind of wish I could be one of the characters in the movie because I want to have the experience of the overall exchange. I thought about this, and I wanted to ask you guys this. Can you recall in your lifetime where maybe it was just one night, even it doesn't have to be a weekend or more days, where you had an incredible conversation with somebody and it was so inspiring because not because they liked you or you liked them, but because of what you guys talked about. There was a connection that's instant there that you can discourse on issues that you might not be able to do, especially in your everyday small talk bullshit life. I tried to think of that. I couldn't come up with a great example. I'd think about it some more. Maybe next week I'll have a better answer because I'm sure that at some point in my life there had been a conversation where I exchanged ideas with somebody. And I'm talking too in a non-sexual way, not that I'm trying to mate with somebody or in any type of a romantic or lusty way. I'm talking about a true, in the spirit of wisdom and knowledge and exploration, in a philosopher's, weekend paradise. Maybe it's encapsulated in 2 hours or not, but when I throw this movie on, I get so inspired for so many different things. And then the movie ends and I'm stuck with my life again. And it kind of makes me sad a little bit when I watch this movie because I'm like, oh, wow, that was, maybe I should consider that the movie and this discussion isn't something that's attainable. Maybe this was just such an incredibly unique moment that they were able to encapsulate and express in a film that isn't realistic.
Well, we're doing it.
Real life situation.
You've lost me at the end here because we may not have as lofty of conversations as these two guys, but I can think of conversations I've had you brought up like important. I can think of specific conversations that I've had in my life with friends. The last conversation I had with our friend Ryan Liberty. I can remember staying up with our friend Stephen Guile on my front porch until like 6 a.m. one night.
Oh God, yeah.
And like on many occasions. So like I can recall. I can't remember the context, what we spoke of, honestly, but I remember like the feeling that those gave me, and that's an everyday thing that everyone gets to experience. Is one of those great joys of life, universal, just great conversations. So yeah, I don't think there's anything you have to really push back on your like it's not realistic comment.
Yeah, all I know is when I watch this movie, I feel more things than I guess I don't usually feel in the rest of my life. And it's not even feelings. It's just like things and ideas that pop in my brain. So I love that this movie inspires. The acting is first rate. The whole way it's put together is so really, we talked about last week with kids and hyper realism, and it seems so real. This movie seems really real to me. The story between Lipsky and Wallace, it's very authentic without having to put any bells and whistles or unique expressions of look how smart we are within the context of the story. It's a lot of fun to watch this movie. It's a fun movie to watch. I think it definitely holds up. And there's so many more things about it that I would love to dive into related to addiction and the future of technology and people and how we're going to become more pacified and subdued. It's really, really intriguing. And maybe one day I will read Infinite Jest. One day, maybe.
I'd like to think I will too. Maybe. We'll see. my reading, I've read so many books, I broke my head.
I want to read Lipsky's book more than Infinite Jest after watching this, though,
Really? I want to read Infinite Jest. You said, Eric, that watching this movie makes you feel good. It doesn't make me feel good. I literally was like on the verge of tears throughout this entire movie. I really felt like at any time, even like the jokey parts, I felt like with the slightest nudge, I would burst into tears. And I didn't at all through the movie, but that was how I just felt like on that precipice the whole time I was watching the movie. I think a lot of it has to do that I cannot relate to David Wallace as a genius, but I do feel like there's so many things that he says that just really reverberated in me. I mean, he talks about how he hit a point in his life where every axiom had failed and was not true, and how he was like able to see things and unable to function. And I feel like that all the fucking time. So there's and the suicidal ideation, I can relate to that. There's a lot in this that just like it just feels like you're being gutted, and I loved it. I fucking loved it. It is I thoroughly enjoyed the movie the first time I watched it. I'm really glad you chose it, Mike, because I appreciated it much more this time. Maybe where I am in my life now, or maybe the more attention that I paid to it, or who knows what. But yeah, just expert acting from two fucking titans that are out there right now. Really accomplished direction from a guy I'm pretty unfamiliar with. I feel like I need to dig in a little deeper and see what else he's done. And whatever the ethics of it are, I can't speak to that, but you got to applaud the path of the recording of these actual conversations, to it being put into a book, to it being reworked by a screenwriter, and the many capable hands that it's gone through in this game of telephone before it reached our ears. And so who knows how close to the truth it is in reality, but it feels like truth. And when you come down to it, that's all you really want in art. You want authenticity. You don't want to, even if you're looking for fucking popcorn, cheesy bullshit to get you through a July afternoon, you still don't trash. You still don't want to be sucked out of it by some inconsistency in the plot. Like, you want authenticity. And this movie, like you say, Mike, it just feels so real. It almost feels like you're on this road trip with these guys. So I applaud it. It absolutely holds up.
We didn't even talk about the authentic McDonald's 90s version of McDonald's containers.
Absolutely,
with that,
man.
Yeah, they got that too. I'm like, oh, how'd they do that? Did McDonald's like reprint that for them? I was curious.
It's probably vintage in some guy's like personal collection or something. They paid him $1,000.
Would you ever make somebody hold your burger while you go take care of something?
No, that's not me.
Have you ever ordered a giant Diet Right?
Yeah.
I believe Eric has, yeah. Friend Jason Vivian, too. He probably has. He loves diet soda. Oh, my God. He loves it. Murderers did that. That was fun, guys. I'm glad we got to do that movie, the end of the tour. We hope you enjoyed it. And I really think it's an underrated film. I hope more people get a chance to see it. I guess not everybody wants that experience from film when they watch it. But if you're in a particular mood on a particular night, this movie will absolutely speak to you. It really, truly will. Next week, Travis, you are back on top, right? Is that correct? Or did I miss something?
Eric,
did I miss a meeting?
We have a guest, correct? Well, you missed a text probably. Eric, we have a guest, right?
Huh?
You had said that you had spoken to our friend Jason Wellico. You didn't get his pick?
I completely forgot about this.
You had one job besides watching the movie.
Well, Jason hasn't hit him up either. I don't know. Maybe it sounds like this was
not really Eric. It's not really Jason's.
Well, he was telling me he was wrestling with his pick. When I talked to him, he's absolutely on board.
I guess we can't announce it.
I gotta say,
our guest next week.
It works out great because I'm going to Las Vegas, so I won't be around. So it'd be perfect for the three of you. That way, you'll have three people. I don't know if I'll be able to be a part of it. I'm leaving Thursday morning.
I mean, we can say that we have someone that we grew up with. We know this guy for fucking 30 plus years. Yeah. He knows his movies.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have a lot of fun stuff to talk about. He gave me a few things that he was flirting with. So we've got some exciting things to play with. We'll distribute the official pick very, very soon. But yeah, I
it's okay.
For some reason I was like, oh, no more guests. We're until we decide what to do. But yeah, fuck, I fucked up. It will be Jason because he's totally on board. But
all right, well, stay tuned next week while we hang out with Jason and talk about a movie.
Well, I would hate to miss Jay. Maybe if we could possibly do it Wednesday, I'll still be in town. Maybe he's open to that. We'll see. We'll talk about it offline. We'll see how this plays out. But either way, we will have a show next week for you on the Cinema 9 podcast. He's Travis Roy, and that's Eric Albert Brancham. I'm Michael Govier. This was the end of the tour, and we'll see ya.
Just be a good guy.
Oh.